Felsar 9 was once a thriving planet at the edge of the galaxy, a symbol of peace and prosperity. The people there lived under the protection of the United Galactic Alliance, UGA, a coalition of many advanced civilizations. Felsar 9 wasn't just a planet. It was a beacon of hope. It was a place where humans, aliens, and many other species coexisted peacefully, working together to explore the stars and advance their technologies. But all that changed in a matter of days. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of alien ships, unlike anything seen before, arrived in the skies of Felsar 9. The invaders, known as the Corps, had no interest in negotiations or peace. They came with only one goal: total domination. Their ships, massive and powerful, hovered above the planet like shadows waiting to consume the light. They unleashed devastating weapons that turned entire cities to dust in seconds. No one was prepared for such an assault. Felsar 9's defense systems, though advanced, were no match for the Corps' technology. The planet's military forces fought valiantly, but it was clear that this was not a battle they could win. The Corps were relentless, striking with precision, taking down every line of defense. As the days passed, more and more of the planet's cities fell, and the once vibrant world began to lose its color. The people of Felsar 9 were helpless. The skies were filled with smoke, and the ground trembled from the impact of the alien weapons. Despair spread like wildfire. The United Galactic Alliance, who had promised to protect every planet under their care, stood by. They watched from a distance, unwilling to send their forces to help. The UGA, once a symbol of unity, seemed to have lost its heart. Rumors spread that the Corps had a weapon so powerful that no one could stop it. Some believed it was a weapon of mass destruction capable of wiping out entire worlds. Others thought the Corps had an army so vast that no force could stand against them. No one knew for sure. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that Felsar 9 was lost. The surviving citizens of Felsar 9 were forced to flee, leaving their homes behind. The once thriving cities were now empty, their buildings destroyed or in ruins. The few that survived had nowhere to go. Some took refuge in underground bunkers, while others managed to escape aboard old space shuttles, hoping to find safety in the stars. But it was a hopeless journey. No one knew where to go, and no one knew who, if anyone, could stop the Corps. Back on Earth, humanity watched in shock. Felsar 9 had once been a shining example of what could be accomplished when different species worked together. Now it was just another sad story of destruction. The people of Earth had experienced their own battles in the past, but nothing like this. The war with the Corps was like nothing they had ever seen. The world governments debated sending help, but the truth was clear. They were scared. No one wanted to risk their own people for a planet so far away. Humanity had faced its own challenges, its own dark moments, but it had always found a way through. However, this time was different. The Corps were not like the enemies humanity had fought before. They were an unstoppable force. The UGA had abandoned Felsar 9, and with it, the last spark of hope seemed to flicker out. But even in the darkest of times, some sparks refused to die. Captain Leah Brannon, a retired military leader from Earth, was one of those sparks. She had seen countless battles in her life, from the early days of human space exploration to the brutal first contact wars. She knew what it meant to fight for something worth saving. But what could she do now? The Corps were too powerful, their forces overwhelming. No one could fight them alone. Yet, Leah couldn't stand by and watch as the galaxy burned. Felsar 9 was lost, but humanity could still stand up. It was in their nature to fight, to never give up. They had done it before, and they could do it again. The question was, how? How could a single species, scattered across the stars, hope to challenge an enemy like the Corps? Leah had always believed in the power of unity. In her heart, she knew that the only way to beat the Corps was to unite the galaxy once more. But first, humanity had to stand up. Someone had to answer the call. And that someone, she vowed, would be her. Captain Leah Brannon stood on the balcony of her small, quiet apartment in New York City. The skyline stretched out before her, the familiar hum of life below mixing with the distant, fading glow of the stars above. But Leah's mind wasn't on the peaceful world she had returned to. She was thinking about Felsar 9, thinking about the millions of people who had perished, and thinking about the message the United Galactic Alliance had sent by abandoning the planet. Leah wasn't one to sit idle when there was a fight to be had. It was in her blood. The captain who had once led Earth's forces during the contact wars had never backed down from a challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. And now, with the core threatening to wipe out countless more innocent lives, Leah knew she couldn't let the galaxy fall into despair. But she also knew that standing alone would accomplish nothing. The UGA had abandoned Felsar 9, and many species in the galaxy had grown content, hoping someone else would take the lead. That was the problem. The spirit of unity, once so strong, had crumbled under the weight of fear, and if no one would stand up, then Leah would have to do it alone. She reached for the secure comlink that lay on her desk. It was time to take action. Leah began to send out encrypted messages, reaching out to old allies, military experts, and engineers she had worked with in the past. She needed to gather the brightest minds from every corner of Earth to create a plan to fight back. And she knew exactly where to start. Dr. Felix Cole, an old friend and a brilliant scientist, was the first to respond. Felix had once helped design Earth's first interstellar weapons systems. His mind was sharp, and his loyalty to Earth and the UGA was unwavering. He had been part of many missions, but nothing like this. As soon as Lee outlined the situation, Felix didn't hesitate. "I'll gather a team," Felix said through the comlink, his voice filled with urgency. "If anyone can help, it's us." Next, Leah turned to Major Arjun Patel, a skilled strategist known for his expertise in guerrilla tactics. Arjun had served as her second-in-command during the contact wars, and they had become fast friends. He was a master at seeing the bigger picture and turning the tide of battle when it seemed lost. Lee needed him now more than ever. Arjun's face appeared on the screen, a mixture of concern and determination in his eyes. "I'm on it, Leah. We'll need the best soldiers, the best engineers, and most importantly, a plan that the UGA won't ignore." Leah nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. She needed a team that could develop technology to counter the core's weapons, and she needed a way to unite the galaxy's scattered species. But the real challenge was bigger than technology or alliances. It was about rekindling hope in a universe that had nearly lost it. In the days that followed, Leah and her small team worked tirelessly, designing new spacecraft and weapons, and coordinating efforts with underground resistance groups on other planets. They gathered information on the core's weaknesses and researched every bit of knowledge they could find about their mysterious invaders. Despite the difficulties, Leah's resolve remained unwavering. But time was running out. The core had already begun their next wave of attacks, setting their sights on nearby systems. Leah knew that if they didn't act quickly, the entire galaxy could be lost. So she made a bold decision. She would assemble a fleet of ships, all designed to fight the core's advanced technology. Humanity's engineers, working alongside the best minds from other species, developed a new class of ships equipped with cutting-edge energy shields, gravity-based weapons, and cloaking devices. These ships wouldn't just defend, they would strike fast and hard, taking the fight directly to the core. The project was ambitious and resources were limited, but the hope of a few could inspire the strength of many. Leah's message spread quickly, a beacon of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Slowly, more species joined the effort. The Andari, a race of energy beings known for their advanced communication technology, pledged their support. The Sver, a highly intelligent species known for their scientific prowess, offered their help in developing new technologies to counter the core's weaponry. Even the Elorians, a peaceful race of diplomats, agreed to use their influence to rally support for the cause. As Leah watched the ships being built in the vast spaceports orbiting Earth, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. It wasn't the kind of hope that relied on fate or luck. This was the kind of hope that was born from hard work, sacrifice, and determination. The galaxy was not lost yet. Humanity had not given up, and if Leah had anything to say about it, they would never give up. One evening, as Leah stood among her team in the command center, Major Arjun Patel turned to her with a smile. "We've got something to show you, Leah," he said. Leah followed him to the control room, where a holographic map of the galaxy was projected before her. Slowly, one by one, icons began to light up on the map, symbols representing ships from different species who had pledged their support to the cause. It was a small but powerful force, and it was growing. The time for hesitation was over. Humanity had answered the call. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The United Fleet, though still small, was beginning to take shape. Hundreds of engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked day and night to prepare the ships. The task was massive, and time was running out. The Corps, their eyes fixed on new targets, showed no signs of slowing down. Leah's team had only one chance to make a difference, and they had to move fast. Captain Leah Brannon paced the command center, her boots echoing against the steel floors. She could feel the pressure mounting with every passing hour. The fate of countless worlds rested on their shoulders, but the pressure wasn't what worried her. It was the unknown. The Corps' power was unlike anything they had ever faced. They needed to be ready for anything. Dr. Felix Cole, sitting at a nearby console, scanned through data on the Corps' weapon systems. "We've learned a lot over the past few days," he said, his voice thoughtful. "But there's still a lot we don't know. The Corps' technology is unlike anything we've seen before. Even with our new cloaking technology, we don't know how they'll respond to our ships. Their weapons could be more advanced than we think." Leah nodded, her mind racing. "So we have to be faster and smarter." Major Arjun Patel, standing by the holographic map of the galaxy, turned toward her. "We have the advantage of surprise," he said, his tone firm. "The Corps won't expect a resistance to form this quickly. We've also got something they don't: the willingness to adapt. While they rely on brute strength and overwhelming force, we can use our ingenuity." Leah's eyes narrowed as she focused on the map. "We need to strike before they have time to adapt. Once they realize we're a threat, they'll start making adjustments. We can't give them that chance." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. The Stellar Hope, the flagship of the human fleet, would lead the assault. It was a state-of-the-art vessel, designed for stealth, speed, and devastating power. Equipped with energy shields that could withstand most attacks and gravity-based weapons capable of disabling enemy ships, it was humanity's strongest weapon. But it needed a crew that could execute the plan with precision. Leah's team, though small, was prepared. They had handpicked the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers to join the mission. Among them was a young pilot named Jax Carter, whose skills had earned him a reputation as one of the best in the fleet. Jax was a quiet, determined man with a sharp mind and steady hands. He had grown up on Earth, and like many, had seen the devastation of the Corps' attack on Felsar 9. He had joined the cause without hesitation. "We're ready, Captain," Jax said, his voice calm but with a fire in his eyes. "We've trained for this. The Stellar Hope is ready. We just need to make sure we hit them hard and fast." Leah met his gaze. "We will, and we'll do it together." The first target was a Corps supply base located in a remote system. It was a strategic location, providing the invaders with crucial resources for their ongoing campaign. If they could take it down, they would disrupt the Corps' plans and give the galaxy a chance to breathe. The plan was simple. The Stellar Hope and a small fleet of support ships would approach the base under cover of stealth, disable the base's communication systems, and then strike swiftly. The enemy wouldn't know what hit them. The fleet departed from Earth's orbit, its engines glowing as they powered up for the journey ahead. As the ships sailed through the stars, Leah felt a familiar tension in her chest. This was no longer just a mission. It was the beginning of something bigger. They were not just fighting to defend a planet. They were fighting to give hope back to the galaxy, to show the Corps that they had underestimated humanity. The journey to the supply base was long, and every moment felt like a countdown. Leah stood at the command center, watching as the stars streaked by. She couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Her team was ready. They had trained for months, learning everything they could about the Corps and their technology. They were prepared to fight in ways the enemy could not predict. As they entered the system where the supply base was located, Major Patel's voice came over the comms. "Captain, we've arrived. The base is ahead, and it's heavily guarded. But we've got the element of surprise. We're going to hit them fast and hard. The Corps won't know what's coming." Leah nodded, her face set in determination. "Let's move." The Stellar Hope and the support fleet moved forward, cloaking devices activated, slipping past enemy sensors. The quiet hum of the engines was the only sound as the ships maneuvered into position. Leah's heart raced in her chest. Every second mattered. One mistake could mean failure. They were ready, and the time to strike was now. With a sudden burst of speed, the fleet emerged from the shadows of an asteroid field, closing in on the Corps base. The Stellar Hope fired first, its gravity weapons disabling the base's outer defenses in an instant. The Corps were caught off guard, and before they could react, the support ships launched their attack, hitting key targets across the base. The battle was quick but intense. The Corps, despite their advanced technology, were unprepared for such a swift assault. Leah's fleet worked in perfect coordination, each ship moving with precision. Within moments, the supply base was crippled, its communications cut off, and its defenses shattered. As the fleet pulled back, Leah allowed herself a brief moment of relief. They had won this battle, but this was only the beginning. The Corps would retaliate, and next time, they would be ready. The success of the attack on the Corps supply base was a turning point. For the first time, the galaxy saw that the Corps were not invincible. Humanity's fleet had struck fast and hard, and the Corps had been caught off guard. But as the Stellar Hope and its allied ships returned to base, Captain Leah Brannon knew this victory was just the beginning. The Corps would respond, and when they did, they would come with even greater force. Back at the command center on Earth, Leah's team was already preparing for the next mission. The supply base attack had been a success, but it was only a small victory in the Grand War. The Corps were an empire, and defeating them would take much more than one surprise attack. Leah gathered her team around the holographic table, her eyes scanning the faces of those who had worked so tirelessly to make this possible. Dr. Felix Cole, Major Arjun Patel, Jax Carter, and the rest of the crew had all played their parts. Now they had to push forward. "We've taken down their supply base," Leah began, her voice steady, but filled with urgency. "But the Corps won't take this lightly. We've shaken their confidence, and now they'll come after us. We need to stay one step ahead." Major Patel nodded. "The Corps won't be able to ignore this. They'll send a retaliation force, and we'll need to be ready to strike again. The question is, where?" Felix Cole, who had been analyzing data from the attack, spoke up. "We've learned something important. The Corps have a centralized command network that controls their fleets. If we can disable that network, we could cripple their ability to organize and respond effectively. But it won't be easy. Their main command ship is heavily guarded." Leah's eyes narrowed. She knew this would be their biggest challenge yet. "Where is this command ship?" "It's stationed in a system not far from here," Felix replied, bringing up a map of the galaxy. "It's in the orbit of a gas giant, hidden among the clouds. It's practically invisible unless you know exactly where to look." Leah studied the map carefully. The mission sounded dangerous, but they had no choice. If they didn't take out the Corps' command center, they would be facing a never-ending wave of attacks. The resistance would have no chance. We'll need to move fast, Leah said, her tone firm. If the Corps know we're coming, we won't stand a chance. We need to infiltrate the system without being detected. Jax Carter, the young pilot who had earned a reputation for his skills, stepped forward. I've been studying their fleet patterns. I think we can slit through their defenses using the asteroid belt nearby. It'll be risky, but if we time it right, we can make it past their outer patrols. Leah looked at him, impressed. I trust you, Jax. We'll follow your lead. The team quickly went to work, preparing for the mission. They spent hours designing the perfect strategy to infiltrate the Corps' defenses and disable their command ship. It was a dangerous plan, but it was their best option. As the Stellar Hope and the rest of the fleet set out on their journey to the Corps command ship, the crew was filled with a quiet determination. They all knew that failure wasn't an option. If they couldn't succeed in this mission, the galaxy would fall into the hands of the Corps. The journey to the gas giant system was tense. The fleet moved in complete silence, cloaking their ships to avoid detection. The closer they got to the Corps command ship, the more Leah felt the weight of the mission pressing down on her. This wasn't just about saving Felsar 9 anymore. This was about saving the entire galaxy. As they entered the system, Jax's voice came over the comms. We're getting close. The asteroid belt is just ahead. It'll provide cover, but we'll need to move quickly. Leah's grip tightened on the armrest of her chair. This was it. They had no room for error. If they were caught now, it would mean certain defeat. With expert precision, Jax guided the fleet through the asteroid belt, weaving between the massive rocks with ease. The Stellar Hope followed closely behind, staying within the shadows to avoid detection by the Corps' sensors. It felt like a heartbeat had passed before they finally emerged from the belt, and the massive gas giant loomed ahead, its swirling clouds hiding the Corps command ship. Leah's eyes scanned the sky. There, in the distance, she saw the faint outline of the Corps ship. It was massive, far larger than anything they had seen before. It was the heart of their operation, and taking it down would be their biggest challenge yet. Ready the gravity weapons, Leah commanded, her voice calm but filled with determination. This is our chance. The fleet approached the command ship, their cloaks still active. As they neared, Jax fired a few test shots to gauge the strength of the ship's shields. The results were as expected, strong, but not impenetrable. On my mark, Leah said, her heart pounding. We hit them all at once. The seconds felt like hours as the fleet closed in on their target. The Corps were still unaware of their presence, their attention focused elsewhere. It was the perfect moment. Now, Leah shouted. The fleet's gravity weapons fired in unison, sending a barrage of energy blasts toward the Corps command ship. The shields flickered under the force of the attack, and then, with a final surge, they collapsed. The Stellar Hope and its allies opened fire, targeting the heart of the ship's power systems. The Corps had no time to react. The explosion that followed lit up the dark void of space as the command ship was crippled. The galaxy had just taken its first real step toward victory. But this was only the beginning. There would be more battles to fight, more enemies to face, and Leah knew that the hardest part was yet to come. The destruction of the Corps command ship sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the attack spread quickly, and for the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope. The Corps had been struck hard, their central command shattered. Leah Brannan's fleet had shown the galaxy that resistance was not only possible, it was already happening. But even in the midst of victory, Leah knew they couldn't rest. The Corps would retaliate, and this time, they would be more prepared. The strike on their command ship had dealt a serious blow, but it was just one victory in a war that was far from over. They needed to press forward, or the chance for true freedom would slip away. Back at the fleet's base, Leah met with her team to discuss their next move. The atmosphere was tense, despite the recent success. Dr. Felix Cole, Major Arjun Patel, and Jax Carter all sat around the table, their faces serious. They all knew what was at stake. We've disrupted their communications, but the Corps will adapt, Felix said, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. They'll rebuild their command structure. We need to hit them again. And this time, we need to take out their resource supply lines. Leah nodded. We've been playing defense long enough. If we can strike their supply lines, we'll cripple their war machine. But we need to move fast. The Corps are already gathering reinforcements. Jax leaned forward, his eyes scanning the holographic map. There's a supply depot in the Denari system, not far from here. If we take that out, we'll cut off a key supply route for their fleets. Good, Leah said, her mind already working on the logistics. We'll need to move quickly and hit them hard. We can't let them know we're coming. Major Patel, ever the strategist, added, I suggest we break into smaller teams. We can hit the supply depots from multiple angles, making it harder for the Corps to mount a proper defense. Lee agreed, though the thought of splitting the fleet made her uneasy. It was a risk, but it was one they had to take. All right, we'll send smaller strike teams to hit the supply points. The main fleet will act as a distraction to keep their attention away from us. The plan was set, and within hours, the fleet was preparing for the next strike. Leah felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her once again. Every decision now had to be made with care. One wrong move, and they could lose everything. As they made their way to the Denari system, Leah spent a lot of time in the command center, studying the data from the previous battle. The victory over the Corps command ship had been significant, but it had also revealed weaknesses in their defenses. The key now was exploiting those weaknesses before the enemy could recover. Jax was busy piloting the Stellar Hope, preparing for the upcoming mission. He was focused, his mind always several steps ahead. Leah knew she could trust him, and that gave her a sense of calm. The fleet arrived in the Denari system a few days later, slipping past Corps patrols as they prepared for their assault. The system was home to a series of refueling stations, each one a vital part of the Corps' war effort. If they could take these out, they would leave the Corps fleets stranded, unable to continue their advance. Ready? Leah asked over the comms, her voice calm but determined. Ready, Jax responded, his voice steady. The strike teams dispersed, heading toward their designated targets. The Stellar Hope led the charge, its stealth capabilities allowing it to approach the supply stations without detection. Leah's heart raced as they closed in. This was a dangerous move. If they were caught, they would be surrounded. But it was a risk they had to take. As they reached the first station, Leah gave the order to strike. Gravity weapons fired, disabling the station's defenses and leaving it vulnerable to further attacks. The Corps, caught off guard once again, scrambled to mount a response. But by the time they reacted, it was too late. Jax led the next wave of attacks, his ship darting in and out of range, making it difficult for the Corps to get a lock on him. The smaller strike teams were quick and precise, hitting their targets and disabling the supply lines one by one. In the chaos, Leah couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The crew had worked tirelessly to make this moment happen, and now they were succeeding. The Corps were on the back foot, and for the first time in a long while, it seemed like humanity might have a chance. But as they moved to the final station, a sudden wave of enemy ships appeared. The Corps had sent reinforcements, and they weren't about to let their supply lines fall without a fight. A massive fleet of warships dropped out of warp, surrounding the strike teams. Leah's heart skipped a beat. This was bad. They had underestimated the Corps' ability to mobilize. The battle that followed was fierce. The Corps ships were heavily armed, and their numbers were overwhelming. Leah's fleet fought back valiantly, but the odds were against them. Pull back, Leah ordered, her voice urgent. We need to regroup. The Stellar Hope led the retreat, covering the smaller ships as they made their way back toward the fleet. The Corps were relentless, but Leah refused to let them take this victory. They would fight another day, and next time, they would be ready. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, escaping the grasp of the Corps. As they traveled back to their base, Leah took a deep breath. This battle had been a close call, but it had proven something important. The Corps were not invincible. They could be beaten. The resistance was gaining strength, and the war was far from over. But humanity had taken another step forward. And that, Leah knew, was enough to keep the fight alive. The close call in the Denari system had shaken Leah's crew. Despite the victory over the Corps supply lines, their retreat from the reinforcements had shown just how dangerous their enemies were. But in the silence of their return journey, Leah felt a renewed sense of determination. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. If anything, the Corps' aggressive response only proved one thing: humanity was a threat, and the invaders were beginning to take them seriously. As the fleet regrouped at their hidden base, Leah took some time to visit the lower decks. She knew morale was crucial, especially after the close call. The soldiers, engineers, and pilots all needed to believe that the next battle could be won, and that they had the strength to overcome the Corps. She walked through the halls of the Stellar Hope, stopping to speak with the crew members. Jax Carter, the young pilot, was at one of the stations, reviewing the data from their most recent mission. His eyes were tired but determined. "We did good," Jax said, glancing up at Leah. "The Corps weren't expecting us to strike at all, let alone hit them that hard." Leah nodded, but there was a serious look in her eyes. "It's not enough. They're adapting. We can't keep relying on surprise attacks. We need something bigger, something they won't see coming." Jax hesitated for a moment, then said, "We need to take the fight to them, don't we?" Leah met his gaze, her resolve growing. "Exactly. We've been reactive. Now it's time to go on the offensive." Back in the command center, the team gathered for another meeting. Dr. Felix Cole, Major Arjun Patel, and the others were already there, waiting for Leah to brief them on her idea. Felix had been working tirelessly to analyze Corps technology and weaknesses, and it was clear from the reports that they were starting to uncover ways to fight back more effectively. "We've been able to decrypt some of their communication channels," Felix began, showing a series of encrypted files on the display. "It's not much, but it gives us an advantage. There's a major fleet gathering in the Lycor system, right on the edge of Corps territory. It's likely they're preparing for a new offensive." Leah studied the map, her fingers tapping the table as she thought through their options. "If we take them by surprise, we could cripple their entire offensive before it even begins. But we'll need to hit them hard and fast, and we'll have to strike their flagship. If we take out their command ship, the rest of the fleet will fall apart." Major Patel, ever the strategist, spoke up. "This is a bold plan, Captain, but it's not without risks. Their flagship will be heavily guarded. We'll need to move quickly and strike at the right moment." Leah stood tall, her eyes fixed on the map. "We're outnumbered, but we have something the Corps don't: the ability to adapt. We're not bound by their way of thinking. We can outsmart them." Jax, always eager for a challenge, added, "And we've got the best crew in the galaxy. We can do this." The plan was set. Leah knew this mission would be one of the most dangerous they had ever attempted, but it was their best shot. They would have to infiltrate the Lycor system, avoid detection by the Corps, and strike their flagship with everything they had. It would be a bold move, but it was the only way to show the Corps that humanity was not a race to be underestimated. The fleet spent the next few days preparing. Engineers worked to upgrade the Stellar Hope and other ships, enhancing their stealth capabilities and ensuring that their weapons were ready. The pilots practiced maneuvers, and the soldiers readied their equipment for the assault. Everyone understood what was at stake. This mission could turn the tide of the war, or it could end in disaster. As the fleet neared the Lycor system, Leah felt the weight of the mission press down on her. This time, there would be no second chances. If they failed, the Corps would come down on them with everything they had. "Status report," Leah called out as she entered the command center. "Everything's on track, Captain," Major Patel said, his voice steady. "We're cloaked and heading toward the system. We'll make the jump in 15 minutes. Leah nodded, then turned to Jax, who was at the helm. You know the plan. We'll take the flagship down first. Once it's out of the picture, we'll hit their support ships. Jax's eyes gleamed with determination. Understood. Let's do this. The fleet moved silently through space, their ships invisible against the backdrop of stars. The closer they got to the Lycor system, the more Leah could feel the tension building in the air. This was it, the moment that would decide the next phase of the war. It felt like the entire galaxy was holding its breath. As they entered the system, the core flagship came into view. It was massive, its dark shape looming like a shadow in the cold expanse of space. The fleet held their positions, cloaking devices still active, waiting for the right moment to strike. Jax's voice crackled through the comms. We're in position. It's now or never. Leah's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced at her crew, her team. They were ready. This was their moment. All ships, attack. Leah ordered. The Stellar Hope led the charge, its gravity weapons firing first, followed by the rest of the fleet. The core flagship's shields were powerful, but not enough to withstand the combined firepower of the human fleet. The first wave of attacks hit the flagship hard, causing massive explosions to ripple across its surface. The battle had begun. But this time, humanity was in control. The battle in the Lycor system raged on as the human fleet surrounded the core flagship. The sky was alive with flashes of energy as blasts from gravity weapons collided with the heavily shielded surface of the enemy ship. The Stellar Hope led the charge, its engines roaring as it maneuvered skillfully through the chaos. Leah Brannan's heart was pounding in her chest, but her mind was clear. This was the moment that could turn the tide of the war. Focus fire on their engines, Leah commanded, her voice cutting through the noise of the battle. We need to cripple their mobility. Jax Carter, as always, responded without hesitation. He piloted the Stellar Hope with precision, guiding it in tight, evasive maneuvers. The core flagship was a massive target, but it was well defended, and its powerful energy shields flickered only briefly before recovering. But Leah had a plan. We've trained for this, she muttered to herself as she watched the core ship's movements. We know their weaknesses. Dr. Felix Cole, who had been monitoring the enemy ship's internal systems, spoke up over the comms. Captain, I've pinpointed their power core. It's vulnerable. If we can get a shot at it, we can disable the entire ship. Leah's eyes narrowed. This was the opening they had been waiting for. Jax, you have the shot. Take it. Jax didn't need to be told twice. With a confident grin, he adjusted the Stellar Hope's targeting systems and fired a precise blast directly at the power core of the core flagship. The explosion was magnificent, sending shockwaves rippling through space as the flagship's shields flickered and then collapsed. The flagship was now a wounded beast, its mobility severely compromised. But the battle was far from over. The core responded with renewed fury, launching wave after wave of smaller ships in an attempt to protect their flagship and regain control of the system. The human fleet, though battered, pressed on. Each ship fought with the knowledge that victory was within reach, but they could not let their guard down. We can't let up now. Major Arjun Patel shouted as his ship narrowly avoided a collision with an enemy vessel. Keep pushing. Leah's eyes remained locked on the tactical display. She could see the enemy fleet's lines beginning to break. The core were starting to lose their hold on the battle. This wasn't just a skirmish anymore. This was the turning point. The core were beginning to understand that humanity wasn't going to back down. Let's finish this, Leah said, her voice steady. Target their remaining ships. We end this here. The human fleet, now emboldened, launched one final, coordinated assault. Each ship in the fleet followed the same strategy. Focus fire on the remaining core vessels, preventing them from regrouping. Leah's heart was racing as she watched the enemy ships fall one by one. The once feared core war machine was crumbling, and humanity's strength was becoming undeniable. As the last of the core ships fell, the Lycor system fell silent. The Stellar Hope hovered in the vast emptiness, its crew exhausted but victorious. The core flagship was now nothing more than a smoldering wreck, drifting aimlessly in space. Leah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "We did it," she whispered to herself. But there was no time to celebrate. The victory was important, but the war was far from over. The core were not completely defeated, and they would regroup and strike again. Leah knew that the battle for the galaxy was still in its early stages, but this moment would go down in history. Back aboard the Stellar Hope, Leah gathered her crew once more. Felix, Major Patel, Jax, and the rest of the team stood beside her, looking out at the stars. Their faces were marked with exhaustion, but there was a sense of pride in their eyes. They had accomplished the impossible. "We've taken down their flagship," Leah said, her voice filled with pride. "But this is just the beginning. We're going to push further. We'll keep fighting until we've won this war. For all of us." Felix Cole nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "It's been an honor, Captain. We'll follow you to the ends of the galaxy." Leah looked at her crew, her team. She had always known that humanity was capable of great things, but now, standing before her resilient crew, she was certain of it. They had proven that they could stand against the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and they would continue to fight for a future free from oppression. As the fleet began its journey back to Earth, Leah's mind wandered to the future. The core might have suffered a great defeat, but their empire was vast. The war was far from over, yet humanity had shown that it would not be crushed, no matter how fierce the enemy. For the first time in a long while, Leah allowed herself a small, hopeful smile. The galaxy was at war, but humanity was not alone. They had each other, and together, they would see it through to the end.